going to do a demonstration on the HoverMatt system for us, and then we're going to get some time to hands-on play with it.
Perfect. So there's two pieces we're going to talk about. There's the HoverMatt itself, which is the Burgundy one, and then there is the evacuation HoverJack. HoverJack used for getting a patient up off the floor, be helpful for getting them downstairs, things like that. HoverMatt, great for lateral transfers and all your kind of sliding needs. So I think first thing we're going to do is we're just going to get a volunteer. And we've got one. So if you want to lay head side this way, just on the ground. And all we're going to do, guys, we're just going to show a typical transfer up onto here, and then a lift with the HoverJack itself. So we can log roll either device under a patient. You can log roll the HoverJack itself, but it's bulkier. So what I've found to be easiest is to log roll the HoverMatt, and then slide them up onto the HoverJack from there. There is a pouch down here. This is what the patient's feet are going to go into. So as you're bringing them down a stairway, you're going to want them in here. So if you unzip this ahead of time and lay it out, that way when we bring the patient up and on, they'll be inside that pouch and we can zip it up and around them. Okay? So who wants to give me a hand doing a log roll with our patient here? So if any part has to hang out, it's always going to be better that it's the feet, not the head. It's not real comfortable if your head isn't on this. So when you position this before your log roll, just make sure that there's enough room above on the head. All right, guys, you want to give me a hand? We're going to roll our patient here. Okay, ready? Go.
Let's see, you hold C-spine.
Okay. And you can bring her back down. If you roll to me, we'll pull out the slack on the other end there. Okay. Perfect. Okay. You do want to make sure your patient is mostly centered. So when the HoverMatt itself inflates, about 4 inches on either side is going to act as a bolster and kind of pull the patient, hold them inward. So if you've got them way off to one of the sides when you go to inflate it, they're going to be a little bit lopsided. This is pretty good. We're going to be in pretty good shape here. Down on the bottom, you've got 2 ports. It doesn't matter which side you go. It's always easiest to do the side that's closest so that you can come across nice and easily. The other thing that I found that's really helpful is before we even inflate, if I can get just the lip of this kind of up and over already, it's going to make it a little easier. So yeah, if you want to give me a hand there, that way we're kind of started and it'll make it nice and simple. Now, you always need a minimum of 2 people. What's usually, you guys have 2, 3 normally? 2. Okay, so we can do it with the 2 people that are there. If you've got a pillow, it's kind of nice to have a pillow. Since you don't, we'll kind of just do what we can here. So I'm just going to connect to this bottom port. Now, it's easiest to go in straight to the side. If you try to go up this way where it seems kind of normal, you'll hit some stitching up here and it'll hang up a little bit. So just go in towards the label. Make sure you get that snap in place so that when we turn the air on, it doesn't shoot our hose way out. And put the Velcro back on top. Straps right here, just safety for the transfer. The one thing I will tell you, do not over tighten these. You will see people tighten them way down, and then when you go to inflate, it's going to constrict around the patient. So I actually like to put them on and loosen them just a touch. All right, how are you feeling there? You ready?
Pretty good, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to need one other person to help. We'll do it with 2 people like we normally would. Anybody want to? Okay. So I'm going to inflate. We're going to turn it on. It's going to get a little bit loud. Wait for about 5 seconds till it inflates, and then we'll try to center her onto the HoverJack itself. All right, so it'll bring them up pretty nicely. And then from here, if you want, we can just slide her up and on. I have to hold it. So let me get on this side. Hang on one sec. Let me get on this side and I'll try to position this so it can't move. All right, you ready? 1, 2, 3. And you look like you're pretty centered. How are we doing on that edge there? Pretty good. Okay. You can leave the HoverMatt right on top of the surface now. So later, once we get her up to gurney height and transfer, we don't have to roll this under you again. It's going to be right on there. Okay. We can zip you up in here. All right, and we can belt that in a minute. We'll do that. So these belts are mainly used, guys, if you're going downstairs, something like that. If you're just doing just a lateral transfer, transfer down a hallway, you're not going to have to belt somebody into place. But if you're going downstairs, you're definitely going to want that extra support. Okay, before you can inflate the HoverJack, and what I would suggest when you are done using it is there are 4 caps at the bottom that need to be filled. 1, 2. How comfortable was that moving over on there? Was it pretty decent?
Pretty nice.
Slide you up. Start from the bottom and work your way up. You're going to just form a really nice solid base. If you don't inflate the base all the way, obviously as you go up, it's going to get wobbly because you don't have a stable base. So I'm just going to hold my pump on the very bottom. Recommendation, when you do have the two people, I would have one on the side next to the patient, letting them know what's going on. You are kind of lifting them up off the floor. They could get nervous. So just for the patient's sake, kind of talk them through what's happening so they don't try to roll off. Now we do have straps on the side here that we should probably engage even if we don't do the shoulder straps. And again, on this one, I'm going to leave it a little bit loose, guys, because it still could get tight as we go all the way up to the top. So on the pillow, guys, again, there's a red cap on top. The white cap is going to be the inflation port. So I'm just going to inflate this. Is that enough? Too much? Okay. It's pretty quick, so let your patient know what's going on before you do it. All right, so we did the first valve. I'm just going to keep working my way up now, and I'm not going to stop in between. I'm just going to go all the way up, and we'll finish out at height. All right, so we should be nice and firm. It should be very stable. There's a Teflon coated bottom on this, so if you do need to slide it, I mean, you can really move it pretty easily. It will hold up to 1,200 pounds in a lifting capacity. So if we are trying to get somebody up off the floor, 1,200 pound max, 1,200 pound max on the HoverMatt to slide them around. If we're gonna go downstairs with a patient, however, we've got a 700 pound limit. This pocket's not rated up to that 1,200, so as you're going down, going to be a little more difficult. If we are going to go downstairs, we've got our shoulder straps here. Here's the pocket. So especially if you're just using it to lift upwards, you don't need the pocket at all. The pocket's mainly just used for going downstairs. So if you're trying to bring them downstairs, you're going to want them in the pocket. Otherwise, you can just go right on top of that surface, or you can unzip and leave it open and slide across open. But usually just going right on top is going to be the easiest way to do it. Okay, so when we're going across to the gurney, guys, you want to have it equal height or slightly lower. The side you're going to, you don't want to be working uphill as you're pulling across. Do keep your side rail up on the gurney. It'll help just give you a barrier as you're coming across so you're not really going too fast. This thing, because it slides so well, if you're not paying attention and the person that's working with you isn't paying attention, you can just shove somebody and send them all the way across. So really good communication. Are you going to help me do this one across? We'll transfer across? Okay. So again, we'll do it with two people. Last thing to note, this is wider than a gurney. So as we go across to the gurney, center your patient on the gurney, not the mat on the gurney. Just be really careful as it's coming down what you have centered and how you're doing it. When we do this transfer, I'm going to talk through it really quick and then I'm going to do it. Let's let your head down here, sorry. All of the ports, there's a little finger exhaust port so you can kind of slowly let some of the air out. There's also the emergency one, which is going to make it go out a little bit faster. And take it down. So you can do either way. Okay, so on this transfer, what we're going to do is I'm going to do feet first. I'm going to push your feet part of the way. Don't reach across until it gets close enough to where you're not bending your back. So the better we can kind of not have to use our backs, the better it's going to be as far as usefulness. This one's not really wide, so it's not too bad on the difficulty. So after I push her legs halfway towards you, you start pulling the legs. I'll scoot up to the head side. I'll push that halfway. And then I'm going to let you do the centering on here because you're the one who can see. I'm going to stop pushing and let you kind of control it at that point. So I switch sides on here, guys, mainly just because I like having the pump in the middle so that I know where it's going to be. It's not going to get dragged across. I don't have the pump all the way on this side, and I know I've got enough hose to go across here. The other thing, if you can kind of clear your hose and get it started, sometimes you can, sometimes it gets a little difficult, but it'll help as we're going across. All right, so we're going to inflate you, we're going to transfer you across, okay?
The last time that HoverMatt was out here giving us a demo, there was about a 250-pound patient on there that Audrey was able to pull back and forth with one hand. So
Wow.
it's really what he said about just barely pushing, not pushing offside. It's true.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing this technique with a really heavy patient, the person on this side pushing, if they're just pushing the feet first, even on a heavy patient, that's still going to be your lightest part of the patient. So as I'm starting to push and then you grab that handle, we've got enough usually to get even a pretty heavy patient across. So let's inflate it. I'm going to stand right on the side, so I'm on the side with the patient. He's not going to go moving anywhere. That one's break, so we know we're okay. So I'm going to transfer the feet first. Once I get it close, you start pulling. Tag. And then you want to make sure that her body is centered before you tell me to turn it on. And so it looks like we're pretty good. Do we want her down a little bit, or how do you feel? Pretty good? So, any other questions on doing that transfer or inflating the HoverJack? You guys want to come, touch, feel, play with it a little bit?
Pro Transport One. Professional. Courteous. On time.